Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Brooke, and if you're new here, this is a safe place for survivors of abuse. This is where we shine a light on the darkness and break the silence and walk together from surviving to thriving. So today we're going to cover the uncomfortable topic of triggers. And we're going to break it down into the three subjects that I like to call the 3 W's. That's what the world says, what science says, and what God says. We're also going to learn how to process through and cope with triggers. And it's going to be a really interesting video, and it's going to hit a lot of tough topics. And so if you're ready, let's dive in. So let's start with what the world says about triggers. So the world says, stop being so dramatic, or get a grip. You know, the world acts as if triggers are something that we can control, right? Like we just choose to react a certain way or kind of have a freak out, but it's actually not something that we're in charge of. The narrative that the world says, it blames the survivor even further and actually makes us feel isolated and alone and like the outcast, because sometimes we have these triggers and we can't control them, and we need the world to understand that and not blame us or act like we're being totally dramatic. And so that's why I created this video, is so that we can help the world understand that triggers are not our fault. Now let's figure out what science says about triggers. So science tells us that triggers are definitely not our fault, that it's actually neuroscience. And so I'm going to try and explain it in the easiest way possible. So when you have a memory, that memory is usually stored in a certain part of your brain, and it's stored with a very precise beginning, middle, and end. But when you have a memory of a traumatic experience, your brain stores that in a different area of your brain, and it gets stored kind of in your nervous system too. And your body does this because it wants to protect you, to learn the signs leading up to this dangerous or traumatic event. And so it catalogs certain like clips or memories or things that are used to set off warning signs to protect you from a certain traumatic event happening. That's useful, you know, maybe back in the day when we had to look out for the signs of a lion approaching, but not really useful when it makes us afraid of the smell of a certain cologne. And so our brain does this all the time. It's constantly looking out for signals, for warning signs to keep us safe. And before our rational brain, which is our prefrontal cortex, can understand what's even going on, our alert system and our amygdala have already processed what's going on, and it's already decided that what's going on is dangerous. And so it sets off all these alarm systems, and our heart starts racing. We start to feel panicked. We start to kind of have like a very traumatic episode again, and that's because our brain is reliving what it already went through. It's warning us, hey, these things, these signals, this pattern is similar to what we've been through before. We need to freak out and get out of here. And so that's what a trigger is. It's our brain taking over before we can rationally say, okay, listen, we know we're safe right now. This is not the past. We are in a different place and we're safe. Unfortunately, our brain is always trying to protect us and look out for these dangers. And so it doesn't catch up. By the time we catch up, it's already freaked out and we're, panicking and having this traumatic episode. It's really interesting how our body stores this information and how it gets stored in our nervous system, and how our body literally reacts before our rational brain can even react. And if you'd like to learn more about this, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk has wrote a really interesting book called The Body Keeps the Score. And that goes into detail more about how our traumatic memories are stored in our nervous system and why triggers happen. And it gives us an insight into the brain a little bit better. So check it out if you're interested. Now let's learn about what God says about it. So So before we talk about what God says about this topic, I wanted to cover a bit about triggers and how to process through them, because they are a really unfortunate thing that survivors have to deal with. And remember, it's not your fault. There's certain things that we can do to kind of process through the triggers. Now, while we can't avoid them altogether, unfortunately, we can do certain things to help ourselves through them. So some things that I have found useful are practicing grounding. If you can put your feet in the grass or get outside and take some deep breaths, that's good if it's not freezing outside. Or some other things you can do is just sit in your room and point to some things or say some things out loud that you're seeing to kind of bring yourself back to the moment that you're actually in, so that you can remind yourself you're not in that past experience. Affirmations are good, reminding yourself, I am safe, I am okay, I am strong, I am not in the past, I am right here, I am resilient. That's really good too. Another thing you can do is there's breathing techniques. YouTube is full of wonderful breathing exercises that you can do that can help change your mindset very quickly. Humming is a really good one because that turns on your vagus nerve, which regulates the parasympathetic nervous system. And our traumatic events are being held captive in our nervous system in the fight or flight response. And the parasympathetic nervous system actually is the rest and digest type of nervous system. So it kind of counteracts the fight or flight. It puts us in a more relaxed state. So you can do that by humming, splashing cold water on your face. There's different exercises you can do to kind of activate that vagus nerve. Another thing that we can do is we can practice self-awareness, right? So instead of trying to fight the feeling of being triggered, like trying to, I guess you could damn yourself for being triggered. You could feel really bad about it or mad about it. Just accept that you're triggered, accept that you're feeling this way, accept, yep, I'm triggered right now. My heart is racing. I'm feeling very uncomfortable. I feel super afraid. This is a neurological response and I can't control it. And just kind of sit with that feeling until it passes. But also remind yourself that it will pass and that this is just something your brain is doing to try to protect you. But that you just need to help regulate yourself by reminding yourself you are safe. Sometimes when we are triggered, we go into fight or flight and survival mode, and we might act unfavorably or say unfavorably. It's not because we're against a certain person or a certain situation. It's just our brain is somehow correlated this situation with a past situation, and then we act in survival mode. And so I think it's really important that when we do that, when we maybe act unfavorably from a trigger and we kind of respond in a way that we're not really proud of, I think it's important that we take accountability for that we try to fix it for next time, right? Life is all a learning curve. And so if we have a trigger episode and we act, unfavorably, maybe we say some things we didn't mean, or we push somebody away that we didn't mean to, it's good to take accountability and then to apologize, although the trigger is not our fault. It is the way we act we can hold ourselves accountable for that. I think having the right partner is really important, especially if you got out of an abusive relationship. You might not know what a good partner looks like or what that feels like, but let me tell you, a good partner is going to be understanding of your triggers. They're not going to make you feel bad or guilt you or embarrass you for a trigger you might have, and they're actually going to try to help you through it. And so if you're with somebody who's kind of making you feel ashamed of your past and how you react and sometimes freak out from certain situations, then that's probably not the right partner for you, because the right partner is going to love you and support you and care for you and kind of help you process through those triggers and not, embarrass you or shame you for them. And so I just wanted to add that in there. Again, YouTube is full of useful things on how to process through triggers. It's something that a lot of people deal with, not just abuse survivors. And so there's plenty of resources out there to help you figure out what to do and how to cope. Now let's talk about what God says about this topic of triggers. And so if you've ever had something traumatic happen and then you've been triggered by it later, you know that you go into a very intense state of fear. And fear is not something of God. And Psalms 34:4 says that I sought the Lord and he answered and he delivered me from all my fears. So fear is something, unfortunately, that's constant for many survivors. But God says, do not fear, because he is with us. And our God is so mighty and so powerful, and he loves us so much. And he wants the best for us, and he will take care of us. And he always has taken care of us, and we have to trust that he always will, and that he will help us through. So when we are feeling held captive by fear, when we are having a maybe trigger episode and we're filled with that immense fear, first thing that you should do is pray. Pray for God to take this fear out of you. Pray for him to remind you that he is with you. Pray for him to wrap his arms around you and remind you that you are safe and that you are his and that he's got you. Prayer is super important when it comes to triggers. One great Bible verse that I really love that makes us feel better, because sometimes we feel out of control when it comes to triggers, like, why can't I just not have this happen? Why can't I just get control of how I'm acting? And we feel weak, right? Well, 2 Corinthians 12:9 tells us, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast more gladly of my weakness, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. So that verse is beautiful because it's telling us that God is actually made strong in our weakness. And sometimes as like humans, we like to think that being weak is something to be ashamed of. But God says just the opposite. God tells us that being weak is when he is most powerful, and that we should boast all the more gladly of our weakness, so that the Holy Spirit and God can come rest upon us and be our strength for us. I think that that's a really great one when it comes to triggers and feeling weak and all that. We just need to remember that God is all powerful and that he will help us through our triggers, and that he is there for us. If we can just like give all that fear and anxiety to him, he will see us through. So just remember to stop and pray and ask God to help you through that episode. So let's wrap it up. If this video taught you anything, I hope that it taught you that triggers are not your fault, and that it's just a neurological response that our brain has, cataloged these traumatic events in different areas of our nervous system so that it can alert us of certain scenarios, and not replay and get us out of that situation before it happens again. Unfortunately, that means that our brain's cataloging certain smells, certain patterns that we're not even aware of, that then we have a trigger episode and we're filled with immense fear. And it's just our body and our brain trying to protect us from, trauma. And so while that is a good thing, it does cause a lot of complications for survivors on trying to heal, because we don't want to feel that again. And we are in a safe space now, but our brain hasn't caught up to that information yet. So just remember that if you are dealing with it, or if you're with somebody who is dealing with it, that it's not your fault, that you didn't do anything to make this trigger happen, and that the person dealing with it can't, stop it from happening. It's just something they happen with. That we can learn ways to process through it, that there's techniques that we can learn to kind of help ourselves through it, and also it's not a free path to act poorly to people that we care about, or to push them away or anything. We need to learn how to handle our triggers in a healthy way. And so I hope that this video has taught you how to kind of do that, and to remember to lean on God and give it to him. And I hope that you found this video informational, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.